The film begins by showing a very arid planet, where there is a father named Gore and his daughter named Love. For days Gore pleaded with the fragile god so that he and his daughter would be given safety in the face of the test, but unfortunately Gore's prayer was not granted by the god until finally Love could not take it anymore and finally died. The death of the princess of course made Gore very sad and desperate, but in the midst of his despair he suddenly got something that made him go to a place. The place was filled with green grass, a lot of water and a lot of fruit. Gore greedily ate all the fruit he found to treat his hunger all this time. He also thought all of that was the answer to all his prayers so far to the fragile god. It wasn't long before the fragile god finally appeared before him. The fragile god who came was actually angry with Gore because he had eaten all the fruits, even though Gore always prayed to him, but the fragile god thought it was all in vain. Hearing this, Gore was very surprised and also sad because he had always prayed sincerely to the god. He immediately took off his religious necklace and did not recognize the fragile god as his god anymore. That of course made the fragile god angry with Gore. He lifted Gore's body and intended to kill him, but a sword that was there suddenly moved towards Gore's hand so that Gore could use the sword to kill the fragile god. From then on Gore vowed that he would avenge his daughter's death by killing all the remaining gods. The scene switches to showing a group of people who are talking about Thor's life. He is a superhero who has been trained since he was little. After becoming a superhero he lost many people including his best friend and brother. He also had a relationship with several women and the last was a relationship with a woman named Jane, but they had also been separated for a long time. In recent years, Thor has been known to join a superhero group called Guardians of the Galaxy. After all the events in his life, Thor felt quite frustrated and chose to take a break. He also planted his power axe called Stormbreaker while waiting for someone who needed his help, until finally one of the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy contacted Thor and asked him to come in a battle against aliens. After a long absence from the world of battle, Thor looks very relaxed towards his friends who are currently in a state of urgency. The king who was there was happy to see Thor coming and believed that Thor could defeat the aliens and protect their proud temple. With his Stormbreaker power, Thor easily defeats all the aliens. However, its immense power even made the temple there shattered into pieces. On the other hand, it is shown in Thor's ex-lover, Jane. Jane is currently known to be suffering from stage 4 cancer, which makes her friends worry that she will not survive long, especially after she finds out that the chemotherapy process that Jane is undergoing has absolutely no effect on her recovery. Not wanting to drag on lamenting her illness, Jane decided to look for Thor Hammer of Mjolnir, which is believed to give health and strength to those who use it. The next day, Jane immediately set out to retrieve Thor Hammer. As he approached Mjolnir's hammer, the pieces of Mjolnir suddenly sensed Jane's presence. Returning to Thor, after winning the battle, the king was very grateful to Thor and gave 2 giant goats as a gift. With great difficulty, Thor and the Guardians of Galaxy members tried to put the 2 goats into their ship. Besides, Thor received an emergency message from a friend named Save. Because there were so many who asked for help, they decided to split up. Shortly afterward, Thor finally arrived at Save's place. With a serious injury, Save said that the perpetrator who did all this was a guard with the nickname God. He aims to kill all the gods in the world. Now the next target he will attack is the city of Asgard. After hearing this, Thor immediately went to Asgard and met the butcher of the gods. That person was seen resurrecting several shadow monsters that attacked Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy members. In the middle of the fight, someone suddenly came to help them. That person was seen carrying Mjolnir, which made Thor very happy, but unexpectedly the current owner of Mjolnir is Jane. As the new owner of Mjolnir, Jane is ready to help Thor to fight the shadow monsters. That's when Thor saw the butcher of the god, who turned out to be Thor. They also fought very fiercely, but the battle was won by Thor. Because the situation was desperate, Gore finally decided to run away from the place. But Gore didn't run away empty-handed, where he managed to kidnap all the children in Newsgard as his captives. The next day, all the parents suddenly came and reported the loss of their child. Thor enjoys elders and explains that currently Gore has a necrosword that disbelieves as a curse to kill the gods. In the midst of the panic, Thor got a contact from Heimdall's son named Axel. Thanks to that contact, Thor managed to get into Axel's place and realized that all the children had been held captive in the shadow world. To save the boy, Thor needs the support of other gods. That's why he and his members asked to go and ask the gods for help. They arrived at the city of Omnipotence where the gods gathered. Thor and his friends meet with various gods, including the head of the gods, the god Zeus. Before meeting the gods, Thor and his friends use costumes to cover their identities that are from Asgard. Valkyrie is not sure that Zeus will help them prepare another plan to kidnap Zeus Thunderbolt, but Thor doesn't agree with Valkyrie's plan, so he decides to talk directly to the god Zeus. Thor told the god Zeus that he needed the help of the gods to kill a god butcher named Gore. God Zeus casually refused Thor's request and immediately took off his costume.
And flick. Too hard, damn it!
Looks like a shy courgette.
That's Guardians.
God Zeus believes that Gore will not be able to reach eternity because he does not have the key. Eternity is a place that can fulfill any request of someone who can get there. Because of that, Thor and his friends were forced to rebel and fight against the bodyguards of the god Zeus. The action of Thor and his friends made the god Zeus angry, and then he threw the thunderbolt, which made him shattered into pieces. It of course made Thor angry, so he also countered the attack of the god Zeus by using a thunderbolt. As a result of that, god Zeus was injured, so Thor and his friends managed to escape and steal the thunderbolt. Even though Thor and his friends did not get the support of the gods, Thor was determined to still go to the Shadow World to save all the children who were held captive. On the way to the two shadows, Thor and Jane finally have time to talk. There, Jane told me about her cancer, which was getting worse. It made Thor realize the reason Mjolnir chose Jane as the new owner, of course, to save Jane's life. Thor and his friends finally arrived in the Shadow World. They realized that all the children had disappeared, which made Thor realize that Gore had just framed them. Jane realized that Bifrost was the key that Zeus meant. Because of that, Jane immediately made Thor Strombarker. Not long after that, Gore arrived there and directly confronted them. Unfortunately, because Gore is currently in the Shadow World, Gore's powers have become much stronger than when he was on their planet. Gore finally managed to catch the three of them and told Thor to summon Strombarker. As Gore continued to force him, Thor was finally forced to summon Strombarker. With that, they were free again and again faced with Gore. Gore, of course, assisted by the shadow monsters who directly attacked Jane. At the beginning of the fight, Thor and his friends won against Gore, but because they were in a shadow world, Gore again managed to turn things around. Jane and Valkyrie succeeded in being attacked by Gore, so that they were both on the verge of death. Seeing this, Thor finally decided to bring them all back to Asgard. Gore, who saw this, did not want to lose the Strombarker, so he tried to snatch the Strombarker from Thor's hands and managed to get it. Arriving in Asgard, Jane returned to her weak and sick body. Even after all the battles, Jane's condition became even worse. Even though in such a state, Jane claimed to want to continue to help Thor defeat Gore, and that of course was directly opposed by Thor. Thor was finally forced to go face Gore alone. Valkyrie then handed Thunderbolt to Thor, and Thor finally went to Eternity. In Eternity, Gore uses the Bifrost of Stormbreaker to open the door of Eternity. Shortly after, Thor also finally arrived at the place. Before facing Gore, Thor met the children and convinced them to be brave. After that, all the children took objects as their weapons. Then Thor shared his power with them all.
Hey, come on. Yay, we are space Vikings.
Is therefore worthy and shall possess, for a limited time only, with power.
After getting the strength of all the children, and Thor immediately attacked the shadow monsters that were there. Thanks to Thor's power, all the children became so strong that they could defeat the monsters easily. While the children faced the shadow monsters, Thor now fought Gore alone without the help of Strombarker. Thor became very weak. He even died using the Necrosword sword. In the midst of that situation, Jane suddenly came to the place. Jane returns to retrieve Mjolnir and uses her powers to petrify Thor. Thor then took the opportunity to take back his Stormbreaker. After taking Stormbreaker, Thor immediately handed it over to Axel to bring all the children back. After making sure all the children returned safely, Thor continued his fight against Gore. He then managed to lock the Necrosword sword, so Jane took the opportunity to destroy the Necrosword using Mjolnir. When the Necrosword sword was about to reunite, Jane immediately locked the fragments in Mjolnir and then destroyed it. Because Thor was busy watching Jane, he didn't realize that Gorr had now managed to enter eternity. Thor then tried to awaken Gorr so that he returned to the right path. At first Gorr did not care about anything Thor said, but when he saw Thor hugging Jane's body, Gorr suddenly thought of his daughter. Gorr finally decided to ask his daughter to live again. Not long after that, love finally appeared in front of Gorr and made him cry happily. Unfortunately, after his daughter survived, Gorr died because of the power of the Necrosword sword, as well as Jane, who died because of Mjolnir. After that, Jane finally died, and the second of Gorr's death, he asked Thor to take care of his daughter. After that incident, the children were taught martial arts, while Thor finally became the continued father for Love. Unexpectedly, it turned out that Love also had powers that were handed down by the gods. Thor decided to develop the power of love. Together they faced the aliens and earned the nickname Thor, Love, and Thunder.